You are what you eat, both physically and spiritually. In the coming episodes, this dynamic podcast will focus on what we as people take into our physical body, as well as our spiritual body. Scripture says that mankind shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of God. Matthew 4:4. Each episode is designed to wake up the called and shake up the dry bones scattered around the world, for the purpose of opening the eye of what is taken into the physical and spiritual body. The light of the body is the eye. If therefore thy eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. But if thy eye be evil, thy whole body shall be full of darkness. If therefore the light is in thee be darkness, how great is that darkness? Matthew 6:22 and 23.
Shalom, family. Shalom, Queez. I'm Sam.
What's good, bro? I'm Marquise Jones.
And this is another episode of Iron Sharpens Iron. How you been, Queez? I'm
Been good, man. Been good. Lots going on in the world. I'm pretty sure you know. And it's hard not to talk about certain things, but you know, we try to come with a different perspective. Right. You know, both spiritually, physically, as well. So, how you been, man?
I don't know about you, man, but this is our channel, our podcast is becoming more therapeutic as we go along. Like you said, just looking at the world today, just being able to vent. Shout out to Jazz and the whole UGB family, just men having an outlet to speak, you know, to get some stuff off our chests. So once again, Iron Sharpens Iron is a faith-based, Christian-based, disciple of Christ-based channel. We stand on two pillars.
I'm talking about base.
We're standing on two pillars. The first one is Proverbs 22:17. As iron sharpens iron, so shall a brother sharpen the countenance of his friend. And 1 Thessalonians 5:23. What 1 Thessalonians 5:23 say, Chef?
May the God of peace sanctify you wholly, your spirit, soul, and body be preserved blameless until the coming of the Lord. Amen, I do some stuff like that. That's not a quote. I'm paraphrasing, of course.
It's
but
Marquise
that's
Jones
what it's about.
Version.
That's what it's about.
So I'm excited about this episode. This episode is going to be coined Poverty Nutrition. Poverty Nutrition. Sounds like
go hand in hand, right?
I know, right? Sounds like an oxymoron. I think that's the cool thing about the title, because how can something nutritional be impoverished, you know? And I think when we look at our neighborhoods, we look at fast food chains in our neighborhood, we look at healthcare, we look at our diet. We're being fed, but we're being fed real unhealthy. And the talking points, we're going to come from three talking point perspectives. The first one is going to be welfare cheese. The second one is going to be guns and butter. And the third one is going to be bread and circuses. So when you hear poverty nutrition, Queez, what pops up in your head?
First thing that pops into my head is basically if you are in poverty or in a state of, you know, being poor at the time, you're not gonna eat stuff that's more nutritious than it should be. You know, right. Stuff that's processed foods, you know, we're loaded with that in America, which is funny because you start, you know, all this stuff is coming out about how other countries are banning the substance that they readily allow Americans to eat, especially our children. So
Like
they're
Red
banning
40, right?
all sorts of things, man. I mean, the list goes on and on. You find out stuff every single day, as you study and research, and you just be like, wow. And countries are ban these items, but yet, these things are all in our bars, all in our potato chips and
Right.
cereal, some water. So, especially fast food joints. So that's what pops into my head. When you're struggling or when you're in some sort of impoverished situation, you really don't take your health. You know, you don't take it. You don't
Seriously.
even think about it. You don't take it seriously. You
Wow.
know, why should you?
And I guess what pops up in my head is like there's two types of nutritional diets, right? Just like we have two types of wealth classes, the haves and have-nots. Well, when it comes to eating, we also have a diet for the rich or wealthy or upper middle class echelon, and a diet for the low of the lows, that poverty diet, where you got your McDonald's on every corner. Instead of when you go to your local supermarket, instead of getting 100% juice, you got to get the 0 to 10% juice and 90% sugar, like your
Well,
Hawaiian punches, or
I
you
would
know what I'm
argue,
saying?
I would argue that everything in this dispensation of time is processed in some way, shape, or form. From the I give you a perfect example. Have you ever noticed over the last, I don't know, let's say 10, 15 years that it stopped, all these bottles stopped saying spring water, because then the documents come out that it's not even spring water. So now it's called purified water, which is basically water that's been purified and had, all the any vitamins or nutrients and stuff taken into it, and then all the filth taken out of it. So that's purification.
But now
You know
you
what I
got to
mean? It's
think.
not even spring water anymore.
But now you
So
got to
just
think. And so let's say you got somebody that's well off in that upper middle class, and they shopping at your Publix or Fresh Market or your non-Walmarts, let's just put that way. And they getting this expensive water, and they think, because they have the money, they can pay $5 for this water instead of $2. But in essence, it's still tap water.
yeah, I
So
mean,
like
who knows?
maybe there
Nobody's
is no
really,
gap.
yeah. Just in this dispensation of time, everything is processed, man. Especially when you go to the store, it's hard to find anything if you don't grow it yourself, if you don't, cook it yourself, if you don't, you know, plant trees in the backyard or have your own farming system or stuff like that. Everything is tainted. Everything is
The
tainted.
wealth gap, but maybe there's no nutritional gap. Maybe the poor of the poor are eating the same as the richest of rich.
Give me,
That would be a
give
good.
us an example.
So, for instance, you said everything is processed, right?
Pretty
So I'm
much.
thinking if everything's processed, it doesn't matter where you shop. You're going to get the same thing, just packaged differently. Like for instance, you said about water, you don't see spring water anymore. Yet you will see this $5 bottle of water, and because of the price, you're thinking it's exclusive, and you buy it compared to a person that's probably in poverty. They'll buy a dollar bottle of distilled water, or like I'm talking about alkaline compared to like boiled water. They're probably the same. Like that, like we have a wealth gap. We know that, right? You can go on the other side of the tracks, on the other side of Martin Luther King Boulevard, and see that there is a wealth gap. But what if the big misconception is there's a nutritional gap, where you think these people are eating healthy because they got money, and they don't. They're not eating healthy. That'll blow your mind, right?
Yeah,
People
for
still
real.
dying around the same age. You don't really see too many people living past 80, like so.
Well, that
But
goes back
that's
to what
neither
we
here nor
said a
there.
long time ago. The your health and what you eat basically goes hand in hand. You know, all the stuff that we eat is pretty much causing, you know, cancerous, numerous health issues and stuff like that. So, you know, you find the people that live the healthiest or the longest have a very sustainable diet to where they're not eating whatever's readily available.
Mhm.
So, you know, statistically speaking, I believe that's true to be. So you look at I read an article last week how they're literally cutting cancerous parts out of the meats that we eat in order to serve it. So like in a slaughterhouse and stuff like that, when you see a cow or a pig or something like that, and they have cancerous parts, they're actually slicing it and cutting it out. So what's,
When they
you
think and
know,
they thinking they're getting it all out,
well,
you know,
you are what you eat, both physically and spiritually. You know what I mean? So
uh,
you talk about the natural side of it and even the spiritual side of it. You know, when we're struggling with certain things in our lives, do we actually, you know, turn towards faith in Christ? Do we read our Bibles like we should? It's an old saying that says, if your Bible is falling apart and tearing apart, then you're not. You know what I'm saying? So one of the things that I had to learn in my life is just be to sustain my faith is, especially with all the stuff that's going on, man. Things are happening so fast. We got to get in our word. We got to
right.
study our word. We have to edify ourselves first before we can even, you know, build up somebody else or build up our family and hold our families together. We got to take care of ourselves spiritually and physically. What we eat, you know, in our soul and our spirit as well.
That's a good
So,
transition because you're talking about take care of us and our families as well, and that leads us into welfare cheese, that
mm,
first talking point, and that term comes from the 1935 Franklin D. Roosevelt bill. I think it was called the Social Security Act. It was after the Great Depression, right?
right.
And I think the economy was tanking, trying to boost it up. So he came out with this legislation that it had 11 titles. Title one was old age. Title two, Federal Reserve account. Title three, unemployment. Title four, child aid. Title five, child welfare. Title six, public health.
Mm,
Title seven, Social Security Board. Title eight, taxes with respect to employment. Title IX, tax on employers of 8 or more employees. Title 10, blindness. Title 11, general provisions. I mean, and it looks like it keeps going. It looks like it's more than 11 titles. But what I wanted to touch on is it began with President Roosevelt, but by the time the 1960s came with President Lyndon B. Johnson, he not only doubled down but changed the phrase to the Great Society. And I
mm,
think so. Welfare, and correct me if I'm wrong, Queez, welfare in the 1930s was for what poor families, period, whether you were black or white. And of course, the whites got more preferential treatment. They had the complexion for the connection. But it actually got worse during the Lyndon B. Johnson age because a lot of other things was going on, like the women's movement, civil rights movement, and there was this clip you sent me. It was a young, um, what's his name? Darth Vader voice. What's his name?
got me.
He's the voice of Darth Vader in Star Wars.
James Earl Jones?
Yeah, James Earl Jones. Who was the clip you sent me a while back?
Claudine.
Claudine.
Yeah. I
Explain
think
that
it
clip
came
real
out in the
quick.
19 I think it came out in the 1970s, 1976, if I'm not mistaken, which I probably am, but it came out in the 1970s. And I've been wanting to see it. I've seen clips of it, but I cannot find the actual movie. It's that old. Maybe I, you know,
Yeah, the clip you
downloaded or
sent.
something like that. But it was so funny that in order to keep her welfare and her home intact, she actually got penalized. She would get penalized for actually having a man living with her. You know what I'm saying? So like every time the social worker or whoever would come over to ask her questions and interview, the guy would have to
House,
leave.
right?
Yeah, he would have to leave or hide in a closet or something like that. So it was pretty interesting when I saw it the first time. And I was like, dang, this movie came out in the 70s. And by
Right.
God, if it ain't the same thing happening or has been happening throughout
So
time.
I read and it's a great book, Dick Gregory's book, his autobiography called Nigger. And in his book, he describes the same thing happening. I believe he was born and raised in North Carolina. I think towards Eastern North Carolina, outside Raleigh. But he describes instances where the social worker would come over to his house and check on his family, his brothers and sisters, and his mother. His father was, I think, a railroad worker, and he left the house partly because of this program.
Mm,
And it's funny, you talking about 1930s
yeah.
to 1970, the system didn't change. Where if it kept pecking at Black families, it was going to accomplish what it set out to accomplish. So you're talking about from 1930 till now, the welfare system has been perfected where you have, for instance, I have family members, females in my family on a program called Section 8, where you get subsidies to pay your rent. And the stipulation is your rent could be $8. Your rent could be $50, $100. You're talking about the government will pay 90% of your rent as long as there's not a man living in that house per se. And of course, the
Wow.
stipulations, but you're talking about, I had a family member, a female family member that got kicked out of her Section 8 home because the father of her children got caught
So
living
you're
there.
telling me not the fact that they can't be
We're
married,
talking about
they
two,
just
three
can't have a
years
man
ago.
living, but still, not the fact that they can't be married, they just can't have a man living there, period.
Yeah, and I think of course they use some legal jargon like talking about income, right? I remember our neighbor Pee Wee, rest in peace, Pee Wee, um, awesome man of God, and he was on disability, I believe he
Right.
was on disability, and he wanted to feel good about himself, so he got a little part-time job house cleaning. And what was interesting about that situation is he went to his doctor for a follow-up or something, and he told his doctor that he started working, earning a little income, and his doctor threatened to cut his disability income off. So he ended up quitting his
Wow.
job.
Wow.
And how many women have we met that will choose to not get a job? They actually make more money if they don't get a job. Um,
Well, I'm in a situation where I've been in management, most of my life. And when it comes to hiring somebody, you have to offer them something that would actually be attractive enough for them to work. Because if you offer them, say, let's say like for, 15, $16 an hour or something like that, they were like, well, I could get that without working. I could get food. I could get food stamps. I could get Section 8, like you said. I could get my rent paid. I could get all these things subsidized from the government for more than $16 an hour.
and
So,
but look
you know,
look
you
how
you get penalized for actually working. So what do you get? The people that don't want to work,
right,
or
and they're not
just
just as go ahead, Chris.
or just like when things get heavy or when things get hard or something like that, or too busy, and then when they do, I'm out.
Right,
I don't have to work hard.
right,
You know,
and
I see it all the time.
they're not just assessing his job per se. They're also assessing. So they're not just assessing their economic relationship, they're assessing their physical relationships, because they'll look at the man and say, okay, you can only bring in $25,000 to $30,000 a year. The government is paying me 45 to maybe 40 to 45,000 a year. What is she going to choose? Right. This is what the system did. This is what the welfare cheese did. You know, I mean, I grew up, and we're not even. That's a part of it. Let's talk about growing up in the early 90s, the humiliation portion of it, where you had these. See, nowadays, I think they have these cards called EBT, and I don't know what it stands for, but there's these food stamp cards. And this generation probably don't know, before the card, that little food stamp debit card, there was these booklets, color-coded booklets. The brown was $10 maybe, the green was $20, the purple was $50, and you would have to take these booklets to a supermarket and use it.
Back in the
you
day.
Remember?
I remember.
Now think about the humiliation. You understand what I'm saying? So this program, I don't know how it helped. Maybe it did. Maybe it set out what it was meant to do, but it definitely broke homes up. It definitely it had families, whether husband, wife, girlfriend, boyfriends, thinking, what benefits did I have staying in this relationship, compared to not having a relationship and raising my kids on my own as a single Black mother. And then in the 70s, you talk about the flip side, there was the women's movement, where and then you're talking about around the same time that the Lyndon B. Johnson doubled down and created this Great Society welfare program. And then you had the women's movement. You also had Margaret Sanger's movement.
Yeah, that was the Margaret Sanger's movement was a little bit earlier, but it all
that was the 30s, right? Was that the FDR?
I don't know. I would have to research that, but the whole purpose, basically, in a nutshell, was to remove the man and have the citizens dependent on the government. So, long story short, that's pretty much what it is. Fast forward to now. What are we arguing over the most? The whole equality and this, that, and the other, and pretty much a man, let alone a Black man, is pretty much irrelevant in the system when it comes to a family.
And then it's still perpetuated. I was looking up Margaret. So yeah, Margaret Sanger looked like the early 1900s.
I truly believe, as you do that research, I'm just say this. I really do believe that it's not as bad. I just believe that it's kind of like that movie, The Matrix, where you said the people that are doing what they're supposed to, you never hear about them. Mm-hmm. It's the people that's cutting up and, all over that. And remember, we're fighting one of the biggest propaganda tools ever invented, which is the media. You know what I'm saying? 50 men, Black men, white men, it doesn't matter. 50 men can be faithful to their wife, in there working hard, this, that, and the other. And you'll never hear about them. Never. But you get, 8 guys that's cutting a fool, cheating on their wives, out doing whatever, this, that, and the other. And those are the ones that are, highlighted on social media, on the news, this, that, and the other. I truly believe that what you put in front of you, and this is what, pretty much the podcast is about to a certain degree, what you put in front of you feeds you. We're not just talking about food. We're talking about, socialism, social.
I think we're a relationship between dreams and food.
So, what you put in front of you, what you put on a daily basis, not just once, but on a daily basis, what you feed your mind, what you feed your spirit, and what you feed your soul, has an effect on how you think. Mm-hmm. But I ever since I pretty much stopped watching TV, for the most part, all in general, you start reading more, you start researching more, you start learning more because you're kind of like unplugging yourself from the things that everybody's seeing over and over and over again. So that's just my personal opinion. I really do truly believe that there are more families really working it out and trying to work it out more than is being perpetuated.
Yeah,
That's just my
and
opinion.
let us be not deceived. You can see a family that as long as they got a roof over their head, don't even have to have electricity, and they're probably happier. You talking about a 2-parent, 3-kid family married. I mean, digging it through, and they're probably more happier and together than the same type of family living in a mansion per se. I remember I think it was Pastor Darby. He said he went to Africa, and he said there was families. There was his husband and wife with I think 2 kids living in a hut, and they were so happy. And then you come to America thinking you're living that American dream when you have this house and cars and picket fence, and they're miserable. Divorce rates is high. So it's really the social construct, like you said, where
Well,
who is telling us how to think?
That goes. Um, one of my bishops said something a long time ago. She said, "There's always going to be something. You get the house, you're not happy. It's always going to be something. You get the degree, you're not happy. It's always going to be something. You get the kids, you get the husband, you get the wife. It's always going to be something. You get the car you want. It's always going to be something." So when we're talking about happiness, what they say, like the pursuit of happiness, true fulfillment and happiness to me, and what she said, and I believe, is doing what you were created to do, and finding your purpose, whether that be in a marriage or relationship or not. But once you find a fulfillment in God or the purpose of why you were born or created, and you try to fulfill that, no matter if you have $60,000 or $600,000, you know what I mean? If you find that to me will be true happiness, because there's always going to be a pursuit of something. You get the car, and what do you see all over the news? Millionaires breaking up. Hell, what was it, Bill and Melinda Gates?
Yeah, they divorced.
Getting divorced. This man got the most money. One of the richest guys in the world. So what does that tell you? It's not about the money.
Yeah, and that leads me to this, because you just triggered me, especially when you were talking about Bill and Melinda Gates. This program, this welfare cheese program, also skewed the statistics. A lot of us don't even think that when we see the media push this narrative that the Black homes are broken, where's the fathers at in the Black homes? It's a lie. And what makes it a lie is off the fact that they were using skewed data to paint this narrative of no fathers in the home, because and I think I said this before, when we file our taxes, we file married, filing joint. I remember being single and I filed my taxes. I filed head of household. I knew women, especially in my family, who were single with children. Guess what they filed, Queez?
Head of household.
Head of household. Now, take that same woman and the man, because of the school to prison pipeline, they probably got out. Either they're working under the table, or they're not working enough, or because of the welfare program, they can't even say that they live at the same address. So this woman, even though the man is in the house, guess what she files? Head of household, instead of married, filing joint. So when they pull this data up, talking about these census statistics, talking about broken homes, they're looking at IRS tax data to paint the narrative that there's no Black men in the home, which is a lie. And actually, in reverse, the broken homes were actually the upper white middle class that would send their children to boarding schools and things of that nature. I'm telling you, we have to dig deep in this, and I'm glad we living in such a social media information age where social media is teaching us more than our public schools ever did, even private schools.
Things have just been revealed more than ever, man. You know, it's no way possible that you should be learning. Well, it's possible, but there's no way that we should be learning more off of social media than we did in school, especially concerning race and religion. You know what I'm saying? So like every single day there's something that pops up, you know, some history, some Black history and stuff like that I follow on social media, and you're just like, wow, that was never taught to me in school. You're 48 years old and stuff like that. You just found out about the first Black female pilot. You know, it's crazy.
And another, I meant to say this too, another data that gets skewed is when we talk about welfare, whether it's Medicaid or whether it's food and nutritional benefits. When we look, and the narrative they push is when we see him on TV is always a Black person. There's always this Black woman with all these kids and 3 shopping carts shopping at Walmart thinking, and then you have these so-called patriots, all this welfare they giving these Blacks. When in actuality, when you look at the numbers, white farmers are getting the majority of the money. Matter of fact, when I was working for a farmer this summer, he told me that the same bucket the government pays welfare and food stamp recipients, they pay farmers from the same bucket.
Well, now, I'll tell you, like, go ahead.
Let me finish this, please. He said he only had about a 3-acre farm. He said, this looks big to you, doesn't it? He said, this is nothing. He said, you have to go out to places, Montana, Idaho, the outskirts, where they have 200 acres of farmland and they get government subsidies out of the same pot. That same pot Brett Favre and them boys was picking from. That pot. So we really gotta push back on this narrative of inferiority, that stigma attached to us.
Well, the funny thing,
the data doesn't show.
The funny thing about that is, and I hope that people will really start, you know, turning off tubes and actually thinking and using some sort of a sense. Because, like you said, it's a narrative. There's no possible way that Black people in this country can even be the majority on welfare. We're not even the majority in this country. You know, we've been 13%, 14% for the last, 50, 70 years or so.
6%.
So how in the world?
Well, I felt like it was 6% for 30 years. And then we got that extra 7% like about 10 years ago. Like, okay, now we're 13. Yeah, right.
Well, I'm just saying, like, and I just threw that out there. I don't know the percentage. So I'm pretty sure we could find it out. And pretty sure somebody would comment about it. But, if we're 11% in this country, in this nation, there's no possible way we can make up the majority of welfare. The numbers can add up. You know what I'm saying? So
I never thought of it like that.
That's just common sense.
So true.
That's just common sense. So no matter what they show on television, the single mother with all these children, or this, that, and the other, or any Black face, that's basically what it is. We can never be the majority on welfare because we're not even a majority in this country.
Wow.
That means almost every single person that's Black would have to be on welfare, and we know that's not the case.
So who's pushing that narrative and why? See, this is what we gotta realize. We're more powerful than we think. We're on the minds of more people than we think we are. We just got to get to the point where we realize, yes, our Father chose us. He loved us that much to protect us that much. We are the apple of his eye. We are his chosen. Like, if we can get off that stigma of, why would God love somebody like me? Yeah, I think that was one cruel thing slavery did to us and our ancestors. Lowered our psychological value, our morality, our self-esteem so low that even the book we staring at, the Holy Bible, we don't see ourselves in it. Man. But
I would
on
argue.
to
I would
go ahead,
argue
Quiz.
that. I would argue, in my opinion, that I believe we always, if we are left alone without any government interference, without them flooding the streets with crack cocaine, without them flooding the streets with guns, without them, mass incarceration, without any narrative or anything that's physically, we built quote unquote Black Wall Streets all over this nation. Central Park used to be a black town, in Florida and East St. Louis and Texas, and I mean all over. But yet, you say that slavery, you know, made us feel like we were diminished more. I kind of disagree, because once we got out, we started building. We were the carpenters, we were the field, we were the workers, we did all the work. So what's going to happen when you give us land? We're going to build.
So how do
We're
you
going to build
describe
houses and communities, stuff like that. So
how
without
do you describe this generation then?
this generation,
Right. How would you describe this generation? Do you believe if this generation were left alone, they'll reset?
I believe that's what's happening. I believe Revelations is we're living in a time of just everything is being revealed. There's nothing that's hidden that will not be revealed, and everything has to come to pass. You know what I'm saying? And the Bible says, and it came to pass. It came to pass. You see it over and over and over again. So I think everything has to come to pass. What will be is going to be. So truth has to come out. And I have a theory that the opposite of love is not hate, and the opposite of hate is not love. I think the opposite of truth is deception, and the opposite of hate is truth. That's just, but that's
Right.
just
You're
that's
talking
maybe
about
that's a
you're talking about when they say God is love, God is love. And then so if God is love, then the opposite of love is not necessarily hate, but it's Satan, which is the deceiver, which is the liar.
well, it's just something that I've been working. I'm just asking God to give me the articulation to speak it, because God is not what's the word I'm trying to find. He doesn't contradict himself. His character doesn't contradict. So, and even God, one of the first commandments says, "You shall have no other God before me, for I am a jealous God." He hates false gods. He hates idol worship. His people, anybody worship the people that he has called, as Christians and believers and stuff like that. So there is a character. There's a part of God's character that hates. So if God is love, there's no part of him that should hate, right? So you can't say, what I'm saying, I'm working on it. I'm working on it. I'm working on how to say it. So you can't say the opposite of love is hate, because God doesn't contradict himself. God is love, but he also hates certain things. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a contradiction.
Hey, maybe that's something for spoken word.
I'm working on it.
Tune in
I'm
Sundays at
working on
9, spoken word, baby.
it. I'm
But not
working
to
on
get
it.
too off topic, quiz. I really wanted to get into the next two talking point: guns and butter, and bread and circuses. Now, guns and butter, I heard this term even before the movie Baby Boy. I heard it in my 11th grade social studies class. Um, and before I get a definition, what's your definition of guns and butter?
I don't know. That's the first I heard of it, to be quite
So
honest.
it's a governmental term that they use when bringing out that fiscal budget, and they got to determine how they want to spend the governmental funds, and they weigh it whether you're going to spend it on war, like beefing up armed forces, or civilian goods. Yeah, like food, guns and butter. And I just think it's fitting how.
And that's an actual governmental term?
Yeah, I believe so.
Wow.
It's an actual governmental term. So when you see, okay, I pulled up investopedia.com. What does guns and butter refer to? It says guns and butter generally refers to the dynamics involved in the federal government's allocations to defense versus social programs when deciding on a budget. Both areas can be critically important to a nation's economy. Depending on the global security environment, the defense may take priority over social, specifically in times of war. So it sounds like I just read, hey, if we're going to war, forget what you're going to eat. We got to buy some bullets. Hey. And it just like I remember, okay, when we evaded Iraq.
What?
The amount of money after the war was over, the amount of money that went into Iraq to rebuild the country was enormous. And I know a lot of people thought, man, if only we can use that to feed the poor. How many times have you heard that? Oh, they, like even Pac said it in his songs. They got money for wars, but can't feed the poor. Guns and butter. And then you talk about when we evaded. See, I truly believe after being prior service, and I had some buddies in Afghanistan back in 2018, 2017, 2018. And it was funny how they went out there, and some of my battles was like, man, we out here just guarding poppy seeds. And then you see the opioid crisis that just happened. And you wonder, in the pharmaceutical companies, were they running out of resources? Because, you know, they're the ultimate trappers. You know what I mean? You talk about your local dope boy got nothing on pharmaceutical companies. You understand what I'm saying? So I wonder, was that their form of guns and butter? Hey, we running out of resources. Let's bring these poppy seeds back. And next thing you know, the opioid crisis just took off, where heroin almost disappeared. You know, last time I heard of heroin is when I watched American Gangster, Frank Lucas. You know, so that was in the 70s. And what heroin doing back now? So I just think it's critical to talk about like who making these decisions, whether we load bullets or eat bologna. You understand what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
It just puts things in perspective, how war is a form of boosting the economy. I think we spoke about that earlier. Like, how the heck is war a form of boosting the economy? But it is. It is. It's just interesting.
I mean, this was told to me. This was told to me. I'm not saying it. I didn't make it up. This was told to me that one of the reasons that the economy gets boosted because of war is because of the death toll. You know, that was told by somebody that was actually in a military branch.
And war is a form of population control.
Well, I don't know. I ain't saying it is or isn't, but I'm just telling you what was told me. You know what I mean? So, you know, not everybody that goes over there comes back, unfortunately. So that you can wipe out generations like that. You know, most people that join the military are from 18 to 24 or so. So, you know, you get however many thousands of people that are 18 to 24 years old that don't make it back, unfortunately, and that's somebody's child. You know, and then that puts a strain on a person that's already working, that's, you know, 40, 50, 60 years old. And then people are working more. They're not retiring. I know a lot of people that are in their 60s and 70s that are still working. I really do. A lot.
Well,
Not
maybe we should.
because not because they want to either. Some are working because they want to, and they could. And some are working because they have to. And like, how is that right?
Saying what
How
you
is that right?
what you relaying to the people is like on that micro level, how war affects an economy and a family. On a macro level, we're talking about, let's say Detroit was a country, and Detroit, as we know, went bankrupt. If Detroit was a country that was going bankrupt, they can actually start a war and boost the economy up, and everybody's flourishing. And on the macro level, think about it. They're borrowing. They're borrowing to construct tanks. They're borrowing to construct bullets. The economy is booming because everybody's working now off borrowed money. But we never asked the question, what people would Detroit, if Detroit was a country, be borrowing money from? And who would they have to pay back? So who's actually getting rich? You understand what I'm saying? And what if this so-called bank? Because when you don't go to war with yourself, I don't look in the mirror and say, I'm going to punch you in the face right now. You're going to go to
America
war with
did.
somebody?
Civil War. They went to war with themselves.
That was more spiritual, though. That was brother fighting against brother to free our people.
Still, they went to war against themselves.
Yeah, but what the point I was trying to make, so Detroit is not going to go to war with itself. It's going to go to war with another country, right? So now you got two countries that need funds. But the one that's holding the bag is the one distributing the funds. So how? So you got to ask yourself, war is lucrative for who? Because if I controlled all the money, Queez, I can fund both sides of the war.
Good, in theory.
In actuality. And historical events. Go that deep. I just wanted to discuss the other aspect of poverty, nutrients, and guns and butter. That's an impoverished blueprint that cannot benefit anybody, especially if you have to choose food or war.
It doesn't benefit anybody because everybody's relying on the system. So,
and that brings me to you brought this to my mind, and I never heard this before. Bread and circuses. And when you described it to me, bread in the circus, I thought about Gladiator. Are you not entertained?
Are you not entertained?
So explain
Threw the sword
that.
at him and spit on him too. Are you not entertained? That was taught to me by a dear friend of mine, and we've been talking for some years now. And he had said something years ago, and I said, "What do you mean?" He was like, "Freaking bread and circus." This is probably 2012 or so, 2013. And he said, "Man, this whole thing is a bunch of bread. It's nothing but bread and circus." And I said, "What are you talking about?" He sat down and explained it to me.
Ain't that every job?
I know, right? My mouth was just wide open. I was just like, "Wow." I was like, "Where'd you get that from?" And he was like, "It's from it's a Roman term, and we can look it up, eventually." But that's one of the reasons. Remember, you brought up the movie Gladiator, and remember when
it was let me not to cut you off, Queez, but the remark came from a Roman named Satyrus Juvenal. Satyrus, Satirist, Juvenal, Juvenal. So you're right, it's a Roman term.
But remember when part of the Gladiator, when You know, he became Emperor Jacques Phoenix character. He became the Emperor Caesar of Rome. And the first thing he said he was gonna do was open up.
Joaquin Phoenix.
The first thing he said he was gonna do is open up the coliseums again, and they're gonna have games and stuff like that. And
I
one of the
remember that
senators,
part.
yeah, one of the senators said, I think he's smarter than you give him. He was like, one of the senators was bashing him for it, and then the other one was like, I think he's smarter than we
Give
think.
him credit for.
You know, he's gonna give him blood, he's gonna give him games, he's gonna keep him entertained, and they're gonna love him for it. And basically he was saying that he can do anything right in front of your face, right under your noses, and you won't even realize it if you just keep him fed and keep him entertained. Bread and
Wow.
circus. And that's, I
And
believe, just the world we're living in right now. You keep us fed, keep us entertained. If anything pop off, just heighten the entertainment and heighten the circus, and just keep giving us bread, and we'll just keep on
so
falling in line.
let me ask you this. Let me ask you this, quiz. I want to see if this works. When I say American sports, what's the first league that pops in your head, or first American sport that pops up in your head out of the major sports in America? Basketball.
Football.
See,
kind of equal.
Yeah. For me, I would say basketball. It's funny how basketball and football has about 70 plus African Americans, so-called African American Hebrews on teams. But the first thing that popped up in my head was NFL. NFL grosses more money than I think basketball and baseball put together, and that sport is modeled after gladiator sports, after Roman sports. And I think it's so funny that when COVID was going on, when monkeypox was going on, Ebola, anything that could make the people panic was going on, you still had sports. You still had football. I mean, the stadium was empty. The basketball arenas were empty, but they were still playing. No mask on. You understand what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
I love how this website put it, collinsdictionary.com. They describe bread and circuses as something as extravagant entertainment offered as an expedient means of pacifying discontent or diverting attention from a source of grievance.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate.
Man,
Diverting attention from a source of grievance. What's the first thing when you have a death in the family? What's the first thing they do once the burial?
we
So
eat,
you put some in the ground. You put somebody in the ground. They comfort you, and everybody eats. You know.
So that's that. I think out of everything we just said, I think government entertainment. What's the analogy you gave, or how did you break down that word entertainment, Queez? Oh, don't break up now.
Entertainment.
Hey,
I
you
ain't
gotta
breaking
say it
up.
again, Queez.
Entertainment.
Say it again.
Entertainment.
Please elaborate, young sir.
Man, you asking me to go back in time when I wrote that. It's just television. Tell you how to envision. It tells a lie and tells you how to vision. I got that a long time ago when I was thinking about some things.
And it
And I was just
enters
writing entertain
and
men.
tames men. That's
Right.
entertainment.
Yeah. That's what it is to me.
So true.
That's what it is to me. And I'm not saying, man.
Now, wait.
Get me wrong.
Let's
I'm
go a
not.
little deep, Quiz. So when you say, I don't mean to cut you off. I'm just so excited. When you say enter and tame men, are you referring to if they keep us entertained, we can't revolt or rebel because we're tamed?
I'm not trying to revolt and I'm not trying to rebel. What I'm trying to do is edify. How can you edify yourself when you have so much entertainment, so much comfortability, so much what's the word? Convenience. When everything is convenient. and everything is. I give you a perfect example. I was organizing my files today on my computer, and I pressed the button for the i what's that the i iTunes, and on the top of the phone it said over, I don't know, 300 million songs, unlimited. Try the first 3 months for free, and it instantly popped into my head, unlimited downloads. That's what it was. 300 million, so over 300 million plus songs, unlimited downloads. And I was like, I don't want that, because not everything, not in the world that we're living in right now, it seems like everything is unlimited. There's no limit, there's no line for nothing.
Right.
But that's self-discipline. And I'm not saying I'm whatever holier than anybody, but I'm just saying, like, certain things in my life, I don't want unlimited anything. It's certain things that I want to draw the line. I don't need 300 million songs.
You have to have boundaries.
You gotta have boundaries.
You have to have a hedge of
And
protection.
if anything is unlimited, how far do you go if something's unlimited? Can somebody really listen to 300 million, I'm sorry, plus songs? Can you really have that many unlimited downloads? And it's just like just a bunch of data and stuff like that. So I'm not saying that. I just say that to say this, like, and I'm not saying don't watch football. I'm not saying don't watch sports. What I'm saying is that I think we have to get back to a point where we just start studying more. We can't, everybody wants change, but nobody wants to change. You know what I'm saying? You got the whole Kyrie thing, and if anybody speaks out that's under contract as far as an athlete, it's kind of like I can't help but think about the whole the Willie Lynch syndrome thing. Keep the body. You don't mind if this guy shoots 66% and have 11 steals in the game, and he's leading the league in this and has this RBI. That's all good. People make money off of that in gambling and all these
right.
sports things. You know what I mean? Those DraftKings and all that stuff. I remember they came out with the whole draft thing. Who's going to get picked, this, that, and the other. So, I instantly think about that. Keep the body and destroy the mind.
When you said Willie Lynch, you triggered me into how Lynch's letter said how you break a buck. So you know what I mean? How you get the strongest, the biggest, the blackest enslaved,
yeah,
and you bring them publicly before everyone, whether it's his wife and his kids there, and you break them, whether that's by
rape that nobody talks about.
Them. Yeah, whether that's sexually raping them,
tar and feather
whether that's
him,
like beating them in front of everybody.
Time to a horse and let the horse pull him.
So yeah, when you look at today, how many and you brought up Kyrie, how many of them are getting bucked though? How many of them?
Anybody that goes against the system, that, man. And I'm not saying I agree with or without Tyree. I don't know. I really don't watch it. All I see is like the end result of, I'm like, what's going on? And then you hear his comments and stuff like that. So I'm just saying, like, that just reminds me, and it's a history of that. You look at Muhammad Ali. Somebody said, oh man. Well, you look at Muhammad Ali, and the government, the U.S. government, took him to court and had to fight the U.S. government just because his religious beliefs, and that he didn't want to go to the Vietnam War and kill anybody, and the fact that they wouldn't respect the fact that he wanted to change his name.
And remember, they
took away, I think, if I'm not mistaken, they took away what, 4 years?
His belt. They took away 4 years. They took his
belt. But they didn't
belt.
take his belt. He lost his belt because he wasn't fighting. What I was saying is that, the black athlete, especially the black athlete, has a history of being persecute what they believe. Not just, but that's, I don't know how we got on this, but, it's a history. I mean, I'm not going to go down a laundry list of people, but, you brought it up. So same thing.
Right.
Nothing new under the sun.
Nothing new under the sun, man. This has been a great episode. I really enjoyed this episode. I hope you out there were edified, referring to as poverty, nutritious value we're on, whether that's the welfare cheese, whether that's the guns and butter.
Cheese. I never trust cheese that don't melt. And you open up that cheese came in two forms, a block or a big can. Well, like you open up that can and it's like 2 inches of freaking grease at the top.
My wife growing up, she said her mother used to make them, her and her 2 sisters, listen to this now, peanut butter and cheese sandwiches. Because peanut butter was, you get a big thing of peanut butter, government peanut butter, and a big block of government cheese.
How the heck do you even put that peanut butter on bread? You know how thick that crap was?
I'm telling you, man.
You can knock somebody. You can make a baseball with that butter.
And we're stronger
with the peanut butter.
We're stronger for it, man. We're so much stronger for it, man. Even now, I have family members on the WIC program. I don't know what it stands for, WIC, but the program,
Women and Children program.
Women and Children. So that program gives you so much milk.
That program was stolen by the Black Panther. The Black Panther started.
Yep.
They neutralized the Black Panther and stole that. Revolution doesn't change.
It gives you so much. Just be careful of stuff that's free, But I just enjoyed this episode, Queez. I don't know about you, but it just edified me so much that the fact that we went through the 1935 FDR welfare program, we went through the 1964 Lyndon B. Johnson welfare program.
We went through the crack epidemic.
Oh my goodness! And we're still here. Not only are we surviving, but we're thriving. And this is what identity does to people. This has been another episode of Iron Sharpens Iron.
I hope you're edified, people. Follow us and comment down below, this, that, and the other, and let's have a discussion. I hope you're edified. We do this for real. You know what I mean? For real.
We do.
So
this is not scripted, baby. And stay tuned for scripted.
I'm sorry, did he say
scripture.
scripted? This is not. This is a PS service, and no, I'm just playing.
What was that title you said? Scripted versus scripture?
Yeah, man. Why are you gonna give it away? Come on, dog.
Yeah, stay tuned for that. Because this ain't scripted. This ain't scripted. This is just scripture, baby. But I'm Samson.
Marquise.
And this has been another episode of Iron Sharpens Iron.
Stay blessed, people.
What our fine Hebo selves.